now. I think we have a few matters. I think I'll start with Curtis Hart and Catherine Hart. If you folks are able to unmute and turn your cameras on. Okay, I'm just going to stand up and stretch my legs for a minute. Hopefully you all can still hear me a little bit. This is 17-3-004-6408. Believe I saw Mr. Hart. Are you present and can you hear the court?
Yes.
Okay. And then Catherine Hart, are you present?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Hart, I'm having a little difficulty hearing you, so you might need to either move closer to a microphone or speak up a bit.
Okay.
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 So let me get into that digital file quickly.
I did provide a bench copy of the report. Should be there for you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, let me grab that. This also is a case with a lengthy history. So much like before, if I get something wrong, please correct me. I take no ego in this. I hopefully get it right, but with these longer cases, I know you all have been involved in this case for a long time. I am not. Let me look through one more time. Hold on.
I can also email it to your judicial assistant real quick if you'd like.
Yeah, let's see. I don't have a bench copy. I
sent one to you through the clerk's office, but can I have the email address for your judicial assistant?
Yes, you can send it to Sylvia, and I don't have it memorized yet. So let me pull it up here real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so it will be WIRKKALAS@cowlitz.gov.
Thank you for your patience, Your Honor.
Oh my gosh, of course. And it looks to me like while you're doing that, that what we are here on is review of the report. Does that sound correct to the parties?
Yes.
It looks like, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying yes.
Okay. And then it looks like at the last hearing on May 10th, there was an order for hair follicle and mental health testing for father. We can maybe talk about whether that's been done. And then the report, the GAL report review date was set for today. So those are kind of the two things on my list. Is there anything else the parties were thinking we would accomplish today that I haven't mentioned?
No, Your Honor.
Nope.
Okay. So let's start, while I'm waiting for that report to come in, let's start with an update on hair follicle testing and mental health evaluation. So I'll turn to you, sir, Mr. Hart, and let me know where you're at with that.
I got both of those accomplished.
Okay.
I got the results for the hair follicle test turned in. I haven't gotten the results from the mental health evaluation, but they didn't recommend any counseling or give me any diagnoses.
Okay. And I didn't think the records that were submitted to me first were from Ms. Hart. Showing full compliance for the month of May with your obligations, and also fully negative testing. Does that sound right to you, Ms. Hart?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for submitting that. So I think, sir, I certainly will take your word that you have accomplished those things. But the court will need some sort of evidence similar to what Ms. Hart has submitted.
I'm just waiting for the ROI to sign to turn in so that they can send it over there.
Got
Yes,
it. Okay.
Your Honor, I should let you know, he did send me the results of his hair follicle test. He needs a new ROI for the mental health assessment. So I'll be sending that to him today so he can get those shared as well.
Got it. Okay. And let's see. So on that, I guess we could just do, are you guys set for trial yet?
No.
Is this going to trial?
Well, I'm going way, way back. Give me just a minute here.
That's the first time I've heard of that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that we would require a trial.
Oh, okay.
Neither one of us want to go to trial.
No.
Okay. So the last, when this came back in front of the court after long history, it looks like back in March, when the GAL was appointed, one of the parties had filed an order for adequate cause. The court said, we're not going to address that right now. First, we're going to address contempt, and then they assigned the GAL. So I don't actually see, and you guys can help me out here. If there's still, it seems like out in the ether somewhere, there still is this motion for adequate cause that hasn't been addressed since March. So maybe the folks can fill me in a little bit on what the folks are wanting the court to decide.
Today, when I turned in my medical documents last week, the clerk told me that none of that was going to be happening today. Today was just the GAL report review.
Right.
And so today I'm hoping that after I had a chance to read the entire report from Heather, that I asked the court that adopt her recommendation on that report.
So you both have had a chance to review the report, is that correct?
Yes, I've read the whole report.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is obviously we're going to discuss the GL report. That's why we're here today. But I'm just trying to make sure I understand what the ultimate goal is, because the reason a GAL was assigned is because someone filed a motion for adequate cause that hasn't yet been ruled on. And my assumption is that's because someone wants to change something that was ordered previously. So help me out there a little bit.
Okay, and I'm the one that filed the motion for adequate cause, and this is all kind of confusing to me, as so you know, because me and Mr. Hart were in complete disagreement with both of our proposed parenting plans that we filed at that time when the court appointed the GAL, because we were in complete disagreement. And so she did her report, and the clerk told me that I was probably just going to need to refile a new proposed parenting plan once all this was done. And I think with the GAL's recommendations, all the visitation and everything, it is going to be a process, which I am in agreement with. So I think at this time, the papers that I filed it way back when at the beginning of the year are just kind of, they aren't pertinent right now.
Okay. Okay. That helps me out a lot. I appreciate that. So I'll turn to you, Mr. Hart. Have you had a chance? I'm just waiting for that report to come in still, but have you had a chance to review the GAL report and recommendations?
I do. I agree with pretty much all the recommendations except for she recommended a non-professional person for the visitations, for the supervising the visitations, and I don't know anybody. She said she wanted both parents to issue 3 names. The only person that's associated with my ex-wife that I trust at all is her mom, and she lives in Las Vegas. I don't know anybody around here that's willing to do that. My parents aren't willing to be the supervisors for her visitation. And I don't know anybody that's willing to put in that kind of time and responsibility. And that's why I asked it, to be under a professional setting. And that's pretty much it. There's a couple of points in the order that, or in the report that are just like not factually correct, but at the end of the day, it's not going to really change anything because I've never said that I didn't want Catherine to not see her son. I just wanted it to be under supervision and be safe for Eric. And so that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I
Well,
would like to know when she's going to be, if ever, like at all financially responsible for him. She's not paid any child support. She never bought him any clothes. She doesn't financially support him in any way, shape, or form. I know that she's not legally bound to by means of like any type of court orders to take away, like driving privileges or anything like that. But it just like, I know that it was part of the original contempt charge that she get caught up on that, and she just never has. And so like, that is kind of a concern. But mostly my biggest concern is that I believe that it needs to be in a place that we can just pay so I can trust the people, because I just don't trust anybody that has anything to do with her except for her mom.
Can I
That's where
speak to that
Eric is
for a
now.
moment, Your Honor?
Yes, absolutely. So, sir, I'm going to turn to Ms. Call here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate where Mr. Hart is coming from on that point. My concern around it is my interest, and I believe the best interest of the child is starting to reconnect with his biological mother. Mr. Hart is not invalid in requesting that. The issue becomes resources. Do we have the resources available? I actually agree that Ms. Hart should have to catch up on her child support payment. And I understand where Mr. Hart's coming from in that request. I'm not sure that those resources are available, and to withhold even more visitation due to that lack of resource feels concerning to me. It's a county pay case at this point. We have both parents who are officially unemployed at this moment in time. And so preventing the child from having contact visitation with their mother for that purpose, I was trying to avoid that situation. That's where I'm at with that suggestion.
I'm not suggesting that we like not let her see Eric because of the unpaid child support. It's like she's never paid child support, so I'm like completely used to that. I was just bringing that up, but the main thing is the supervised visits, because I just don't trust any of her associates, and I don't know enough people around here that have that kind of time or are willing. I don't hang out with any of the same people for the most part that I did when I knew her. So that's pretty much it. But the whole thing about I'm not trying to stop her from seeing Eric because of the lack of child support. I was just wondering if that's ever going to be. I was just bringing it up. It doesn't really matter though.
Yes, it sounds like your primary question, or I guess question probably doesn't really sound like it's an objection, but your primary question about the GAL report surrounds who would do the supervised visitation. Is that?
That's my primary concern about it. Like, I have some objections to the facts that she listed down. Like, I was misquoted a few times, but that's not going to change the outcome of anything. So it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't need to bring that up.
Right. And you probably heard me say to other folks, I'm more concerned with any objections or agreements to the recommendations. I certainly understand there's at least 2 sides to every story. I get that.
Yeah, I have no objections whatsoever to like the timeline. I think that's all great.
Okay. Well, Ms.
It's
Call,
just the supervised visit thing. Sorry about that. Sorry to keep cutting you off.
and who does the supervised visits? And you're saying you don't know anyone who could do it.
I don't know anybody that is willing to do supervised visits for Catherine, because my parents aren't. And they would be the only people that I would know that's willing to do that kind of thing at this point in time. But they're not. They're not trying to put up with that stress. They're just not willing to do that. And yeah, I don't trust any of Catherine's associates.
Okay. Well, Ms. Call, I'll turn it over to you. I still don't have that report, but I'm sure it's making its way through the printer system and into the courtroom, but I'll have you go ahead.
Like I know before her, like one of Eric's teachers before had offered to be like to do the supervision. There might have been a counselor, a school counselor. I can't remember.
Okay.
Like I don't necessarily need her to pay for it. I don't care if it's like expensive or the cheapest place in town. I just need it to be somewhere that somebody that I could trust.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your input. Okay, Ms. Call, go ahead.
Yeah, I confess. So kiddo actually does live with Mr. Hart's parents. So I do confess that my hope was that that would be a situation where we could have that occur. I believe Mr. Hart in saying, and again, I don't expect Mr. Hart to carry a lot of trust for Ms. Hart at this point in time. But I'm trying to think through a quick solution to this. If it really is true that there's absolutely nobody in town who could handle a non-professional supervised visit, then perhaps we do have to ask for a supervised visit. I'm not a professionally supervised visit. I'm not comfortable, mostly for Eric's sake, of putting him in a situation where he needs to now be with somebody he doesn't know at this point in time, or somebody who we have a long history of needing to rebuild trust with and rebuild a relationship with. And so there does need to be supervision. In my opinion, there needs to be supervision of some kind, mostly for Eric's benefit, to help him be as comfortable as possible as he rebuilds this relationship. So if it's really true that there's absolutely no one, if Miss Hart has a solution to this issue and Mr. Hart can agree to somebody around, I think that would be my number one hope, that they could come to an agreement. If that is absolutely impossible and there's just no way forward, I think that we do have to go to a professional supervisor.
Yeah. Ms. Hart, let me turn it over to you. Do you have proposals for folks? And obviously Mr. Hart would need to agree, that could be there for supervised visitation. Otherwise, as you heard, and I don't know any other solutions beyond professionally supervised visitation, which does cost some money.
Well, I just got this report, last night when it was emailed to me, so I haven't had a chance to reach out to anybody yet. I would have to say that I don't associate with a lot of people. So I hadn't gotten that far. Right now, I was just kind of focused on getting these phone calls started. I do have my best friend, Melissa Tavares, who would be willing to do the visits. Mr. Hart knows her very well. She's been my best friend since I was 10. She's a legal assistant down in Vancouver, but would be able to make herself available to do the visits.
Mr. Hart, do you know that name?
I do know Melissa. I don't trust her at this point in time.
Okay. That's fine. Here's kind of my thought with this. I think what I'd like to do today, and I'm not trying to cut parties off, please, we'll continue discussions. My thought is, since I don't have the report yet to look at anyway, and it sounds like maybe the parties could use a little additional time to come up with a potential solution for supervised visitation. What if we set this over just 2 weeks? I would certainly note that the GAL report has been filed in a timely manner. And then we'd come back in 2 weeks where maybe we all have a little time to pick our brains about a potential solution. I'll say the catch-all, if we don't, is that it's going to be supervised visitation. And if there isn't money for that, unfortunately, I wish I had a solution to that, but I don't.
Can I share? I'm just hearing from a fellow GAL some information that I personally didn't have, which is that Parents Place, while their availability is limited, they charge $25 an hour, which is very, very low. And then Beth Fellows actually can do supervised visitation through her company, and she charges $45 an hour. So there are reasonably priced options should we need to go that route.
Okay.
But Your Honor, if you're comfortable giving Ms. Hart immediate digital visitation while we work on this, I'd really like that for both people involved.
Okay. Let's, Mr. Hart, what is your take on it? Well, first, Ms. Hart, Mr. and Mrs. Hart, actually, you both will have to be a part of this. Do you both have the tech capabilities to engage in Zoom or FaceTime visits between Ms. Hart and kiddo?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Hart, is that something you would be comfortable with?
Facilitating that once he gets back home. Yes.
Okay. When could I'd like to do a bench order that does allow that. How would the parties like that to be crafted?
Well, right now, Eric is with my mom in Nevada, and he will be for 3 weeks.
Okay.
He has been asking her to be able to text me, and he wants to video chat with me, but we were just kind of waiting until court today, hoping that it would be a thing that the court would allow. And so I would ask that the court allow the visitation, electronic communication start immediately, like Ms. Call asked for as well.
Mr. Hart has stated that he trusts Ms. Smith, Ms. Hart's mother, so much so that he sent his son to go stay with her for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like
After reading the GAL report, I take that statement back, actually. Just to throw that out there. She lied to me several times about certain statements that were proven to be incorrect in the GAL report. But I would just much rather prefer that he be home with his whole entire family before that starts, so he can be with his Grammy and Papa. He's only with Grandma Alice, a few times for a few weeks out of the entire year. And I feel like it would just be much better served for him if he was here with everybody else to just unpack all that.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to issue a bench order that I guess, Mr. Hart, here's what I think about. Obviously, you trust this woman enough to have your child. So I believe I can more likely than not trust her enough to supervise electronic communication with Ms. Hart. Is there no electronic communication occurring?
That's correct.
There hasn't been any type of communication whatsoever.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's just kind of baby step this in a little bit. Let's say twice a week. I don't think I want to go into texting at this point. I think that can get a little back and forth and maybe difficult for kiddo to receive tone of voice and face and that sort of thing. So let's say starting now, and I'll do a bench order 2 times a week, up to 30-minute video calls with mom are allowed.
Your Honor, also by using the Our Family Wizard app,
Okay.
I could monitor all of those conversations and see all communication. That's the beauty of that app. So it's not just Miss Hart and Eric communicating, or Miss Hart and her mother communicating about Eric. It's actually, if Miss Hart is required to only communicate with Eric through that app,
Yeah.
it's all it may help Mr. Hart feel some security in that all of that is being recorded and kept somewhere.
Okay. And forgive me for not being super knowledgeable about Our Family Wizard. Does that allow video calls, or is it just a texting? Oh, it does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Okay. Perfect. So let's do that. I will include that the communication will go through Our Family Wizard. And then if the folks want to set this for 2 weeks out to finish our review of the GAL report, my thought is, if Mr. Hart, you are having heartburn about any of the communication that has taken place, we will also address that on our 2-week check-in. So that would be July 12th. I believe, if I got my dates right. Yeah. Well,
I'm on the Clark County docket that morning at 9 a.m.
Oh, okay. Would July 19 work?
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah, I have another case that morning, but I think it may be the same docket. I'm still waiting to find out, but yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Mr. Hart, Mrs. Hart, will that work for you, July 19th? So that'll put us 3 weeks out.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay. Okay. And so I'll just note for today's record, report is timely filed. I just need a chance to review it. I've listened to the parties' discussions about any questions or concerns they have about the report. And then Mr. Hart, I still believe if you can keep working with Ms. Call on the ROI and mental health records and that sort of thing, that will be helpful before July 19th as well.
So does the report, does that get amended once the mental health records come back? Because she says in the report that she recommends certain things that wasn't recommended by the professional. So I'm not sure how that gets fixed in the official report that's going to the court, because she's not a mental health counselor. She made recommendations as if she was, and if she knew the results of what they would be, and that they turned out not to be that way.
I haven't been provided with the results of your mental health assessment, so I didn't have
but
that
you
as I
did
was writing
assume.
those recommendations.
You did assume in your paperwork.
Well, sir, I'm gonna stop you there, sir. What I'm gonna say is that the GAL and the court will rely upon mental health professionals for our final recommendations and orders. What you have right now, and often what courts do, is say, hey, like, we're not sure what's going on here. Based on some evidence we have, we think maybe this, but we would like a professional to weigh in. That's what's happened here. So this isn't a situation where Ms. Call is trying to be a mental health provider. This is a situation where she is asking for input to this court and to herself from a mental health provider. So, sir, the steps that you're taking, the report that you're getting, assuming it says what you say it says, you know, perhaps there isn't further treatment to undergo, but we have yet to see that. So that's what we're waiting for.
Okay.
Okay, does that help?
I mean, I guess.
All right. Well, we'll see the folks back here on July 19th, and we'll address all of these issues again based on new information. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Mrs. Hart, Mr. Hart, you're free to log out.